This is the website of the MetalBot. When it starts, it's in Dutch, but I'll translate. By pressing OK, you admit that you read and comprehend the information in our disclaimer, that the information you are getting from our chatbot is very general, cannot replace any professional advice. It's a chatbot that uses artificial intelligence to try and give an answer to your questions as accurate as possible. We cannot guarantee it's complete. We cannot guarantee that it will always give a right answer. So if you want really advice, if you're in a legal bind with your employer, you can find us at our officers, our electronic workspace. And if you want to know more about the rules to use it, you can find our disclaimer here. So when I click on the disclaimer, so it's an entire chapter for the chatbot that gives a bit more explanation to its user, what it can't, what it can do, where the information is stored, etc. Then when you click OK, then you have access to the MetalBot. So we have different sectors that we represent, so different booklets, different data sets. This is, for instance, our main sector, steel, metal, machinery. And then you can click on it. It will start a chat. It will give a greeting in Dutch and in French, because Belgium is a bilingual country, and we represent people that are French speaking and people that are Dutch speaking. And then you can actually ask whichever question you want about wages, about leave, maternity leave, about trying to find a good work-life balance. We have different systems in Belgium that give the option for a worker to work 4 days a week instead of 5, etc. So I can ask any kind of question in any language, like a normal chatbot. So for instance, if I type in English, hello, I'm a worker in this sector, I have some questions about leave, and then hello, feel free to ask any questions you have. I'll do my best to provide you with an accurate answer. How many days can I take?
And so all of this is pulling from the specific data sets that you've been already had on the website, but were kind of hidden or hard to read on the website, and it basically uses the same information but now presents it through the chatbot.
Indeed. So, and that was one of the biggest challenges. The question that I asked was really general. How many days can I take? So there's no extra information about how many years have I been working. Did I work a complete year last year? So it gives me an entire breakdown. So it says the number of leave days you are entitled to depends on the number of worked and equivalent days in the previous year. So it gives an entire breakdown about if you worked so many days, we have that many leave days this year, with a total of 20 maximum that you can have in total if you worked an entire year. So I asked it, I told it that it always has to answer accurately, only use, I will show you the prompt later. And I also put in that with each answer without fault, it has to always put in, for more detailed information, contact our union representative or our local office. If I ask a question, I want to speak to a real person, it will give me a website that links to our messaging system, and it can talk to a live person within the day mostly. So it obviously does this in all the different kind of languages. So it's...
And what language would the original documents have been in?
Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch. The only thing that is sometimes a problem, the Dutch language has a lot of English words in it. So we use, for instance, computer in Dutch as a computer. So there's a lot of similarities. So sometimes when I ask a question in English, and now I cheated a bit. So I said, hello, I am a worker in this sector. I have some questions. So it understands immediately that I am someone who speaks English, and it starts to answer in English. Sometimes when I ask a question, a very short question, straight after that, he has difficulty seeing that it is in English, because some of the words, there's a lot of similarities. But when a question is asked in Polish, when it is asked in French, when it is asked in German, it always did accurately. So that is something that I'm still working on. It's not a big problem because we do not have a lot of members or union delegates. We have no one actually that will ask a question in English. So it's a very small group of people. So that,
you were sorry, just so you were saying earlier on, because I think it's really interesting that the vast majority of people that use this probably are delegates rather than the members, even though a member can ask it. It's people who already union reps, they're already having conversations with members. It's not just replacing that face-to-face necessarily for them. It's actually just helping them get the information that the member needs.
Yeah, indeed. You have to look at, or I think when you look at the way intelligence is introduced into organizations now, there are like two sides in the story. There are organizations that are firm believers that they will get massive production gains and that they can replace workers. I think, and we think in our organization, that's a very wrong way of looking at it, because union work is human work. It's never, it's the social contact. It's being there for people. It's helping them live face to face with the workers in the factories. So for a union, in my opinion, it's completely wrong, unnecessary, and even risky to try and replace workers with AI. So we want to, every system that we are trying to develop, it's made to enhance and help a worker, and primarily not even the people of the staff who are working for us, but primarily the union delegates that are on the ground. That's our vision. And we could use our resources to try and help the staff of our union, but primarily, and we are very prioritizing the union delegates that are elected and that are still in the factories and doing the work there. So this is something that we made specifically for them. Why did we open it up for the public? Different reasons. First off, because we'll show you later on when I explain how we did it with the bridge, there's a specific kind of input. When we have a lot of input, when we have a lot of questions, we can really exponentially, we can very quickly, we can improve a chatbot by leveraging our data sets. So this is how it looks like. This is the website. When you want to transcribe, you can download the transcript. So when you have a question, or when it gives, like now, it gives it quite a lengthy response, and maybe you as a union delegate, you don't really know how many days the said member worked last year, or how many days a worker worked last year. So you can just download a transcript and you have every answer it gave you, and then you can, it's more easier to give the information to someone else. So we made this. Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you a quick question around kind of data privacy and data, also kind of data monitoring. One of the challenges in these things is obviously monitoring the chats is really useful, because then you can see when it maybe makes a mistake, when you need to hone a question or get better data for a question or so on. But then there's a kind of data privacy element where people could put in public information that's private to them. How do you handle that?
So we, in the disclaimer and in the start message, we very clearly put in that it will never ask for something private, ask your name. It won't ask where you're working. You're not required to put in your name. And we also urge people to not share any information with them. And any information that they do share, we are very clear about what we are doing with it. So it's stated in the disclaimer. That is the way that we are handling it at the moment. We can use the transcripts to try and improve the chatbot. So I can a transcript from 2 weeks, 3 weeks back, and we can check the answers, the questions that have been asked, the answers that have been given, and we can see which part of the data set can it read really well and which part it doesn't. And then we use it to improve it. And from the moment we use the data is deleted and it is no longer saved nor stored anywhere. So that is something that we are doing, that we are very clear about on the disclaimer. We also urge people in the disclaimer to not, that they are not required, and that you are not required to give any personal information. And concerning the subscription that we have, OpenAI, within that subscription, it doesn't use the data to train or whatever. It's a paid subscription. We also asked two of our legal advisors before launching it if this is okay, if the way we're handling it, and they confirmed it, and they even wrote the disclaimer to be able to make sure that we are trying to handle this as correctly as possible. The only thing that we are trying to constantly monitor is all the laws around AI are constantly changing, and unions themselves, including our union, are really striving to have laws that are more clear and even more restrictive in some areas. So we're constantly trying to monitor these laws, and we are also trying to practice what we preach according to these data issues. Right. So this is the metalbot interface. If someone doesn't know its sector, it can type the name of a company. It does not save it. It just compares it to a list that we have, and then it will give you the sector so that you know with which chatbot you can or you have to talk. Then we have the assistants in our dashboard. So these are the different chatbots that we made. So here you can see, for instance, the prompt that I have made.
I think you're still sharing the chatbot.
I'm still showing the chatbot.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. So these are the different assistants. OpenAI calls them. It's actually quite easy, if I might add, for someone to make something like that. You just have to put in a name. You have to prompt it. The system instructions. You have to choose the model. We are using the GPT-4o. We're not using the 1 mini or 1 nano. We aren't using the O3, which is a reasoning model, because we tested with the O3, we tested with the 4.1, and both models are reacting worse to the data set than the 4.0. And the 4.0 is actually a nice balance between that is giving answers quite rapidly and very accurately. We do a file search. This is the vector store in which we put our files. So this is from a different sector with an FAQ that we put in here, and that is the data set that they are using. You can see that it has been converted to JSON, which is an easy way for an AI to read it. Here you have different response formats. You can put in the temperature. So temperature.
It's more about randomization, isn't it? It's kind of how random and creative the response is.
Yeah, you can put it from 0 all the way to 2. When you put in 2, for instance, it's gibberish. It gambles, doesn't even speak in words, it speaks in letters and in numbers and in signs, because it's basically gambling which letter is following the next one. So it's when you put it at 1, there are guides for this that you can look up. One is used, 1.2 for creative writing. So we have found after some testing that 0.35 is a really good temperature in the 4.0, in the GPT-4o, is a very good temperature to answers, but still have a bit of empathy. Like when someone asks, my grandmother died, how many days do I have? We don't want it to respond enthusiastically. We don't want it to respond very coldly. So 0.35 is a sweet spot that we have found that works best. So the prompt is quite large. At the moment, 16 questions, different things that we have put in when you are always be professional and clear, always respond in the language of the user, only answer questions that are in connection with the sector, with your data sets actively. Do not write poems, don't translate things. So we tried to make sure that it can't be used as a homework bot. If you can't answer a question or a user is frustrated and he wants to ask about, he wants to talk to a real person and give this email address, etc., etc. So it's don't ever compare our laws with other sectors or other companies, other countries. So there isn't, for instance, we had this thing in the beginning where when someone asked, do I have a day's leave when I have to move, when I bought or rented a new apartment, can I have a day's leave for that? And actually in the 70s, such a law existed. So when people asked it, the chatbot responded, yeah, of course, you can have a day for movement. I even have a law for that. So we don't want it to compare its data sets to what happened before, to the internet, to other sectors or other countries. It has to stay within the confines of what we are asking. So that's a bit of a way that we tried to do the prompt. There is something else in the prompt that I would like to show you. It's this little thing. So we have quite a complicated way in Belgium of when someone has been put on notice, when someone wants to leave the company, the way that we are trying to calculate how many weeks he has to put in his notice from both ends. And so if you're dismissed by your employer, it's quite a complex calculation. It's two different kind of laws, one from before 2014, one from after 2014. It depends on a lot of different things. Yeah, so every time someone asked the system, hi, I want to resign, how many weeks do I have to put in my notice in advance, or I have been dismissed, how many weeks do I still have to work there? All the calculations were wrong, all of them. And we couldn't get it to work, so that proved to be too complex for the chatbot to do something like that. So we have a tool within our union where you can very easily just calculate it by putting in your date when you started, the date when you left, and the different sector that you are working in. So we don't really have to complicate things. So I prompted it, and I said every question that is, when we talk about notice, when we talk about dismissal, when we talk about resigning, you answer the following. And it's a sentence, and it always says that sentence, even though in our data sets, every information regarding that topic is still in the dataset, because we are using the datasets to convert them into JSON, but we are also using the dataset to convert them into these booklets.
And I think that's really interesting in terms of the whole process that you've outlined. Obviously, the iteration on prompts, on finding what's going wrong and whatever, and then also that example of something that's actually more of a mathematical calculation rather than a pattern that needs to be found in language, and using the right tool for the right thing. And large language models aren't really very good for mathematical calculations, but a normal computer application that you can build quite simply is very good at that. So I think it's really that process is really interesting, and it's a really great example of what you can do with AI. Thank you for that. I'm gonna stop recording now, but thank you very much for that overview. I'd love to be able to use that at some point.